Through a collaboration with the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, the Patterson Foundation has a Fellows Program, which provides selected graduates a year-long career-building opportunity to learn innovative philanthropic principles and share their expertise through engaging initiatives tied to their personal passions. Here is a roundtable discussion with the first 3 TPF Fellows: Anna Saeger Karnei, Abby Rolland, and John Ferguson.
I think one of my top favorite moments always will be our kickoff event for the Honoring and Onward 10th anniversary celebration.
And liftoff.
The Patterson Foundation begins its journey into the unexplored vastness of possibilities.
And the amount of work that went into that in multiple areas. One, working with Bill Waggy and Bruce Rogers to develop the documentary, which originally, when Deborah brought me the documentary project idea, she was like, I think it could be like 20 minutes. There was no way it was going to be 20 minutes. It was a miracle that it was like 49 minutes or whatever it ended up being. And then also the event, which now boggles my mind because we've lived through COVID, but we had 250 community members there. And it was 250 people who had invested time and resources and sweat into being part of the TPF family and efforts in the community. And people left there happy. And there wasn't anything like particularly sophisticated about what we were doing, but that documentary really highlighted, why we do it and what has been accomplished in 10 years. And then to just say thank you, thank you for being a part of that. And everyone left happy, and everyone, took their little universe globe and put it on their desks or sent us pictures. And I think that's an all-team effort, but also just the power of reflecting and saying thank you to the people that have made it happen is still a goosebumps moment for me.
For me, the first time I was asked to serve on a national panel for a webinar, I was like, what? You want me to do what? It was a panel on the digital divide, and the main panelist was the person who coined the term digital divide. So, when you have him and you have experts that have been in the field for 15, 20 years, and then there's this new fellow dude that's been doing this for about 6 months. And I was so intimidated, and we went into this planning meeting, and just the way things shook out, I was like, I know what I have to add here, and it's actually of significance. So this is a really important addition here to this context. And when I shared it with the group in our planning meeting, everybody was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's how we need to bring it home. This is how we craft this message. And just to be a part of that was not only a huge confidence boost just for me, but it also was a real validation of the work that we're doing and its importance both in the region and throughout the country.
So in October of 2019, which seems very far away now, we were welcoming Rich Harwood to town, and he was going to do 2 live speaking events and kick off the Stepping Forward book circles. And it was my first run of show to ever be developed. It was my first live event to ever manage, and it was my first time managing a large team of volunteers. And I had been traveling for 15 straight days, 2 days before the event started. And I came in for the final check with Deborah, and I just started crying. And she was like, why are you crying? And I was like, I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm sure this is gonna go terribly. And then we went and did the events, and they were both great, and everything was fine. But I just remember that build up to the first major fellow assignment and being like, ah! And then it all worked out. And it's important to do your run of shows ahead of time so that it will all work out.
Yeah.
And to look over the run of shows. So that was my most stressful. Is it was also in October, but of last year. No, October is, I don't know, but it was during the first. It was during the first SCGLR update breakfast. And so normally that's a big event with all the people in the 4 counties invited to talk about it. This year with COVID, it was individual 1-hour Zooms with every single county. And so I was tasked, this was also my first time of helping run a webinar, do all of the slides, pull up the videos, basically make sure everything was going well when I hadn't even really run it without running all the slides. So it was everything, it was kind of a trial by fire experience. And I get off the event, I was crying in tears, you know, at our debrief, like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I'm never gonna move on from this. And Beth hates me right now. She's like, it's okay, just, you know, look over the, you know, and so the next event, I looked through the entire shows. I printed out all my scripts. I had everything marked and ready to go. But the first one, you live and you learn. So that was my most stressful moment.
I feel like it's very important for me to look directly into the camera and say, if you are a fellow, you will cry.
Yeah.
You will. It will happen.
It will happen.
Everyone will tell you you don't need to cry, but you will.
Well, see, one of the glorious things about Patterson Foundation is you will, like, it demands excellence of you.
TPF as an organizational culture is the first place that I have worked where there really is that embrace of the whole human as a person and recognition that, you know, you do need to know what's going on in people's lives because it affects how they do their work or if they're able to do their work or how much work they can do. And the same thing, if they're working in a happy spot for them with skills, abilities, values, whatever, then everything else comes easier too.
Well, and you remind me of something too, like we all remember, you know, Memorial Day of 2020 was not a fun time for a lot of folks, right? There was a lot of racial strife going on. It was terrible. And I have a background as an activist and I really wanted to be back in Indianapolis because I didn't know people here. I didn't feel safe here as far as going out and being on the lines. And Deborah knew I was struggling. And she offered for an extra one-on-one to talk, and we did. And what ended up coming out of that was a 4-part blog series about all the different concurrent crises that were happening and how we might face them individually and collectively through different TPF tenets and ways of working. That's probably the thing I'm most proud of that I've done in this fellowship from a writing standpoint, which never would have happened if Deborah didn't care about John the human. Like if it was only about work products, that conversation likely doesn't happen, at least in the way that it did. And the space wouldn't have been cleared for me to be able to create that in a way that both gave me healing and allowed me to put something meaningful into the world that hopefully helped other people do the same.
March of 2020, I had gone to Foundations on the Hill and in DC, and we were on Capitol Hill meeting with representatives, and I came back and I was pretty sure that I had gotten COVID in DC, and you couldn't find a test. You called the hotline and they put you on hold for literally hours. And so the first person that I called was Deborah, and I said, you know, I don't feel right. I don't know what to do. You know, can you tell me what to do? And she said, okay, like, here's the plan. Here's who I'm gonna call to make sure that we can get you in somewhere. You know, is Kyle okay? Are you okay? What's your temperature? You're gonna send me updates. You know, this is the point where I want you to go to the hospital. Do I need to drive you to the hospital? And like, we had people at TPF fighting over who was gonna buy us groceries. Like, who does that? Like that is a ridiculous, you know, that's a wonderful, ridiculous illustration of what it means to be part of TPF and to know, like, we were down here with no support and no family, and we, you know, didn't have a big friend network. And so if it were not for that TPF family, like, that would have been, it was already scary, but that would have been just a terrifying time. You know, how do we find something like that post TPF. I don't know.
I don't know, but I think one thing I want to take with me is that celebratory nature, like really celebrating accomplishments, celebrating successes, commiserating on failures and learnings, right? But that whole, I mean, it takes work hard, play hard to a whole other level. It really does. And that attention to detail, not only in the work, but also for the people doing the work, I want to make sure that I bring that with me in whatever role I have next.
The idea of living professionally, really living the values of the organization is something that has really stood out to me, and that matters in, my job search and who I'm talking to and all of that. And so I think knowing that and keeping that in mind, like this isn't just, the values aren't just something you paste on a wall and forget about, but really living those values through the organization and the work, I think that's something I'll take with me. I think the idea of what you talked about, John, work hard, play hard, but that joyful stewardship aspect of the work that we do, I think that's something that I will always take with me and remember. And we say thank you, and we say it in many different ways, in many creative ways, and really make people feel appreciated and valued for their work. And I think that's something that I'll always have.
Yeah, there's a way here that just somehow always makes sure that the right person's in the right place. Yeah. Now they're on the right thing, they're owning the area that makes them happy, that they can bring the most value to, and somehow that always just seems to fit seamlessly. And I'm not sure how that happens, but I want to just pick Deborah's brain enough to be able to figure out how to kind of replicate that somewhere else down the line.
Each of us has had, at least one large challenge, I would say, and, one large sorrow of some sort. And Deborah's and the whole foundation's very understanding and respectful of how we process in our own ways and how we want to deal with it and how we want to discuss it.
I think TPF has that why are we doing it front and center, which is such a critical part of being in the world of philanthropy and making the world a better place.
You do give up a lot, but you get so much too. And that's, at least from my perspective, I'm a little different than the other two of you for obvious reasons, but also that I don't have a spouse. So for me, it was really, do I want to move down here? Knowing that what could be possible for me upon exiting the fellowship would be exponentially different than what would be possible if I didn't go. But it is tough. And it's tough to do that, especially when you don't have a spouse, when it is just on your own and throughout COVID. Thank God for these two, because otherwise I'm not sure what my experience would have been. Because not only are we good coworkers, but we're also great friends, and we've had some fun times outside of the office, either home or away.
It was a high-risk opportunity, but it was necessary. I felt like that opportunity cost was going to be too high if I chose a different path, because this is such a unique organization. It's such a unique culture. The opportunity to be mentored one-on-one by Deborah Jacobs is, I'm not gonna find that anywhere else ever again. And I feel very rewarded, both by the work that I do, but also, I do have a spouse, and it was a risk for him too. And I say, was it worth it? He's not in the office with me every day. He's not working in community. He does something else. And he says, not only has it been a really good professional move for you, but he feels like he's a better person because he's associated with that Patterson Foundation family. And that's wild to me, because that's 3 degrees of separation or whatever, still feeling that really positive impact from saying yes to an unknown. And for me, that's really, that's the risk reward, and I think it's been well worth it. And I hope that it is a marker for people who will come after us to say, yes, I will do that because there's been proof positive that it is a worthwhile.
I would agree with all of that. I think for me it was learning about private foundations, and it was a dream. And there's no way that, thankfully, I'm blessed, like Hannah, Hannah is too. We have really supportive spouses who understand that we're ambitious and we want to have really fulfilling careers of giving back. My family's in the Midwest too, and I miss them all the time, and sometimes it's harder than others. But I think having a supportive, knowing that you have a dream and having family, both, your parents and your siblings, but also the spouse who lives with you, being able to support that. So knowing you have the full support to follow that dream is 100% worthwhile. And it's a decision I would make every single day. I would make the exact same decision. I wouldn't change anything about it. So like you both said, the risk may be high, but I think the reward to follow, the opportunity to follow a dream has been 100% worthwhile.
No, and it's funny because I can't speak from the spousal perspective, but I had a really close group of friends in Indianapolis because I lived there for the last 11 years prior to this. And I remember there's probably 5 that I would count as like really best friends. And I was talking to each one of them about this opportunity. Like, well, you have to take it.
Yeah.
They're like, you have to. Like, there's no question. And I knew that, but to hear them say that was really affirming because they saw the power in the opportunity just from a conversation. I knew right when I came down here for the interview, as soon as I started interacting with the different TPFers out there, that, man, this is it. This is where I need to be.
Well, and that's kind of I love, Abby, how you talked about that in pursuing the dream, because I talked about it with Kyle, and we talked about it at the juncture where should I go to IUPUI and go to the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy and get my master's in philanthropic studies, because we could have easily not moved across the country to Indianapolis, but he really did. He said, think about it, come back, and if you think you'll regret not going, then we have to go. And we did it then, and I came to him with the same opportunity, and I said, I talked about it, and I talked about what I thought it would bring me professionally, and him the opportunity to live by the beach. I'm not gonna lie, I did lean heavily on that.
It does work.
But I talked through what I thought the opportunity would be, and he was like, well, you have to go. Like, it's too good to pass up. And I do think, you have to take that big picture look, because 1 year or 1 year plus, whatever it turns out to be, that's so small in the scheme of life, and it's so rich that it would be crazy not to take advantage of that.
I don't know, just having the opportunity to have somebody invest so much into you, an organization invest so much into you and really believe in your potential. Like, how do you say no to that? So I just, there's so many layers to it, and there's so much gratitude on my end for TPF, for my spouse, for my family, for Deborah, for you both, for having you here. But I just cannot imagine being anywhere else right now.
It's not unreasonable to think that the dream is living a life where you are reaching your max potential in service of making the world a better place. Like, that's not a pie in the sky thing. It is a worthy pursuit, and this is an opportunity to really put some muscle behind that pursuit and build the skills so that we're most effective in that path.
When you look at the Fellows program in general, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's let's bring people in here that are change makers and want to really shift things towards a more efficient and effective philanthropic sector. I know that's why I'm here, and I'm pretty sure that's why y'all are here too. Yes. So I'm excited to see who comes next and how we all wind our paths towards that goal.
That's like the excitement of investing in that long-term future is too good to pass up.